surprise had not been completely lost. The South Saskatchewan Regiment's first wave landed in the western sector without a single opposing shot, and only when the news of this landing was broadcast by the Germans was a general alarm sounded. The commando attack on the battery on the far right flank was entirely successful. 6 German guns were destroyed before the raiders withdrew. The South Saskatchewan Regiment's assault carried it across the beaches and over the seawall. Thereafter, resistance stiffened, and despite every effort, the high ground east of the Little River Sea could not be won. Some Camerons remained to fight with the South Saskatchewan, while the remainder of the battalion pushed along the west bank of the river towards the aerodrome, advancing 2 miles and destroying parties of Germans along the way. But the upper crossing of the sea, which had to be passed to reach the aerodrome, was strongly held. Reluctantly, the Camerons fell back towards the coast, suffering and inflicting casualties. During the final evacuation, both battalions lost heavily from fierce fire from the higher ground, but naval craft came boldly to their rendezvous and took off the greater part of both units. The gallant rearguard had to be abandoned. In the main assault on Dieppe itself, the Essex Scottish on the open eastern section of the beach could make no progress. 3 successive attacks over the seawall were beaten back with such grievous losses that the unit could mount no more. Only one small party crossed the promenade, and misleading reports of this success unfortunately led to the commitment of the reserve battalion, Les Fusiliers Mont-Royal. Although the French-Canadians stormed gallantly ashore in the face of heavy fire, they too were pinned down on the beach and could accomplish little. To the west, the Royal Hamilton Light Infantry landed opposite the casino on the promenade. Although this building and the pillboxes near it were strongly held, the Hamiltons cleared them, and groups of infantry and sappers crossed the bullet-swept boulevard behind the casino and penetrated into the town. Here there was some vicious street fighting. The last troops to land were part of the Royal Marine A Commando, who likewise could accomplish nothing. Unfortunately, the tanks were late. The craft carrying the first 9 Churchills delivered the formidable machines about 10 to 15 minutes after the infantry had landed. Guns on the 2 untaken headlands poured an inferno of fire on the beaches. Yet 27 of 30 Churchills reached shore. Some could not get off the beach but engaged the enemy pillboxes with their guns. Others, using rolls of chestnut paling, crossed the shingle and surmounted the low seawall, only to discover that roadblocks across the street leading into the town formed an effective barrier. Not one of these blocks was breached by the engineer demolition parties, although they tried hard. No tank penetrated into the town. Some of them cruised the promenade, silencing enemy positions as they went, but the armored thrust through Dieppe and onto the aerodrome beyond never took place. About 9 o'clock in the morning, General Roberts and Captain Hughes Hallett agreed that orders must be given to withdraw. The tanks covered the evacuation until that operation ended about midday. By about 2 in the afternoon, all was over at Dieppe. By then, the last craft was almost 3 miles off the French coast. Enemy air attacks did no serious damage to the ships, but of the 4,963 Canadians who had embarked for the operation, only 2,210 returned to England, and many of these were wounded. There were 3,367 casualties, including 1,946 prisoners of war. 907 Canadians lost their lives. So ended the brave and bitter day, wrote the official Army historian in 6 Years of War. Under the shaded dockside lights in the English ports, tired and grimy men drank strong tea and told their tales, and the ambulance trains filled and drew slowly out. Back on the Dieppe beaches, the Germans were still collecting Canadian wounded, and the Canadian dead, in their hundreds, lay yet where they had fallen.